you want to meet the customer where they're at, right? You don't
Right.
want to come into their presence and make it seem like I'm better than you, and here's why you should work with me. That's the wrong mentality. You want to come with the mentality of we're an equal. I'm not your boss, you're not my boss. We're teammates. We're on a journey to meet a goal, and the
Mhm.
only way to get to that goal is to do it together.
Welcome to the Momentum Builders podcast. I'm your host, Scott Fain of Scott Fain Designs. And this show is all about sharing insights, stories, and strategies to help you build momentum in business, creativity, and life. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank the man behind the scenes, our producer, Matthew, aka MC Woods, for all you good people and bad people too. He's a crucial part of making this podcast happen, bringing us all together. Big shout out to him for all the hard work. Today, I'm joined by Bryan Spurlock, a realtor from Howard Hanna Real Estate Services of Medina, Ohio. Bryan specializes in real estate investment, luxury listings, using cutting edge marketing and technology to help clients buy, sell, and grow their portfolios. With a strong media presence, social media presence, and a commitment to a personalized service, Bryan is a trusted expert in the field. And from my own personal experience, a genuinely kind and decent human. So, good morning, Bryan. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Um, First off, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we met, how we came together. First of all, it was MC Woods who made the initial contact with you on behalf of an international YSU student who was interested in rental property. You went on to show them a couple of properties, and his first impressions were what I heard later, that you were prompt, professional, had great communication, set us up on a property list right away, and that you brought your daughter out with you, which was always something, cool to see, when you can bring your kids to work with you. And one of the things that we were impressed by was that we mentioned we had a property that we needed some help with, and you immediately brought us a buyer. And that was something, that was really appreciated. So I just wanted to, yeah, start off the conversation, just kind of throwing you your flowers and giving you those accolades.
I
So,
appreciate it.
yeah. But how long have you been in real estate?
So this will actually be my fifth year in real estate. Hit the ground
Okay.
running. I love what I do, so it makes it really easy.
Okay. Well, you're with Howard Hanna. What led you to choose that brokerage over others?
So, I used to work in retail and I had a very great client who had been with me for 10 years at the retail location that I was working at as one of my clients and eventually moved into a business client. And, they thought that I would be great in real estate. And I always pushed it off and said, no, I'm happy where I'm at. I love what I'm doing. And, I just had a little bug in my ear that said it was time. So I went ahead and started studying for my courses and eventually getting my tests, set up and passed on my first try. And that's the rest was really just history. And, because I was in my previous field for 10 years, I was able to just bring those clients with me. So the transition was extremely easy. They know that I was a great servicer and I was always dependable. So it made it very simple for them to say, hey, I know that you used to sell this product, and now I would like you to help me find or sell my home. Completely different ends of the spectrum, but we trust you enough that we know you can do it.
Okay. Yeah, that's so what do you love most about working in real estate? My next question was actually about what drew you in, but I can see that. So what is it about real estate that you love so much?
Freedom.
Hmm. Expound, please.
So I make my own schedule. I
Mhm.
have my own clients. I choose if I want to work with you or not. And that's not to sound pompous or to sound cocky. It's the ability to have freedom. Think about it this way. When you go to work every day and you clock in and you clock out, someone is telling you when you're supposed to be there. Someone is telling you when you're supposed to leave. Someone is telling you if and when overtime is or is not mandatory. And when you don't feel good, you either have to use your vacation time or you have to get someone to cover you, or you just flat out don't get paid. And with you working for yourself and being your own business, if I wanted to wake up on March 14th, which is today, my mother's birthday, shout out, happy birthday, mother,
Happy
Monica.
birthday. Happy birthday to mom.
Right? If I wanted to wake up today and not do anything, I have that ability. At the
Mhm.
same time, it is my own business. So you don't work, you don't eat, right? In the
Right.
event that you sell nothing, you make nothing. So real estate is not for everybody. There are plenty of people that are out there that do need someone on their back saying, "Hey, this is what you need to do. Hey, this is how you need to execute this program, execute this process." And execute your delivery. And that's okay, right? We
Mhm.
need those
Right.
folks. But then you have the other end of the spectrum, aka the entrepreneurs who don't need that thumb pressed down, who need that freedom, who need to be able to go in their own direction to grow their empire, their family's empire. Because what I see every day, and I don't mean to rant, so I apologize, but what I see every day is a lot of folks, they want to do these get rich quick schemes, which, okay, being rich is great, but wealth is better. And
Right.
there's a lot of folks that don't understand the difference. Well, isn't wealth being rich? No. You can spend all your money when you're rich, but when you are wealthy, you cannot spend all of that money. That money is then inherited to your children and to their children and so forth and so forth. And that is the big difference. And that's why I really got into real estate. That's why I love what I do. And that's why I love the freedom that real estate brings me. Does that
Okay.
make
That it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. What are some of the biggest challenges you've experienced so far in the industry, and how have you overcome them?
Dependability. And what I mean by that is there are some amazing agents that are out there, and then there are nightmare agents that are out there, ones that you cannot get to answer the phone, ones that you cannot get to show up, ones that you cannot get to communicate with. For example, about a year and a half ago, I had a client, he wrote an offer for $870,000 cash, ready to close in 14 days, and we never as much as got a phone call back,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
insane,
Yeah.
right?
It
So we
is.
weren't lowballing it. We were actually offering asking price, if you can imagine that. And yet still, we didn't get the decency of having a callback. Eventually, the listing wound up getting expired and taken down. But the point is, you have willing and able buyers. Answer your phones. No, it's all too easy to shoot a 30-second text back, "Hey, I'm busy." And I get it. Sometimes we just can't. I understand that. But at the end of the day or the following day, everybody has enough time to eventually, at some point in 24 to 48 hours, get back to somebody. But to completely just flat out ignore someone, never respond, never explain, it's just unacceptable. So, what you do to overcome a challenge like that is, unfortunately, in real estate, you have to move on. You have to explain that to your buyer that this is not going to be a advisable purchase for them and that we need to move on to the next property and you continue the search. Um, Another hurdle that I would say that comes up from time to time is sometimes you just have frustrating sellers. It's not a dig on sellers. I love my sellers. Without them, real estate really doesn't exist, right? You need
Right.
sellers. You can have all the buyers you want, but if no one's willing to sell anything, buyer doesn't mean anything.
Hmm. What does it say? Listings lead or something like that?
Yep, yep.
Hmm.
And without the sellers, like I said, there's no real estate at all. But being upfront, a lot of people want to kind of tiptoe around things or just not tell the truth. And I'm going to be honest with you, everything that's done in the dark comes to light. So just be upfront, be transparent. It will go so much further. It will make the deal so much easier, and you'll get to the finish line so much faster. And then you don't ever have to worry about looking over your shoulder, worrying that if that buyer is going to come back and file a lawsuit because you didn't disclose.
And you're speaking facts there. It's important to be honest and upfront. And I just to touch on your point before, I think a lot of times the agents that you're describing that don't pick up the phone, it's because there's no team behind them. There's no support, administrative support for doing what the things that they want to do.
Correct.
Um,
And that starts
I-
at the brokerage. It doesn't necessarily, and I apologize, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that starts at the brokerage, right? You, as an agent, you decide to go and hunt and interview. Not all agents do, but I did. You go and you hunt and interview a brokerage, and you see if that is a good fit for your personality, your mindset, and the way that you would like to do business. And if you don't feel at home with your broker, you're with the wrong broker. If you don't feel that support when you're in trouble, when you're stuck, when you don't understand, if their response is, well, Google it, well, go ask somebody else. If they can't come to you with an answer or with the decency to say, hey, I don't know this answer, but I'll find out for you, goes miles, goes miles
Mhm. Yeah,
versus figuring out on your own. It's your own business. Yeah, but even as my own business, still need help. Nobody's perfect and no one has all the answers.
true, true. So is this how your approach to real estate has evolved over time? Like how?
Definitely.
Okay.
It's definitely grown. And everything has changed, right? When COVID hit, it changed everything to begin with.
Right.
But I remember I was just talking to my mother-in-law. I remember when I first started as a real estate agent, I'd wake up each day, I'd put on a suit and, I'd get on my grind, make some phone calls, see, what clients need servicing, et cetera, et cetera. And, then COVID hit and, um, it was a trifecta because really I'm a COVID baby, I should say. So I started being a real estate agent when the country closed. So my last day at my previous job was my first day as an agent.
Okay.
So, you know, I dressed up every day, even though I wasn't going anywhere, dressed up every day, got in a suit and um started on my way. And as I realized, hey, you're getting dressed up, you're wasting suits, as I would call it, right? Wasting a great outfit to go nowhere. That changed. My mentality changed as far as evolving, right? So, then when people started to want to go out, which was slowly but surely, people were getting more and more comfortable, masked up. They wanted to go out and look at homes. Again, I would put on my suits. And I get to my clients and they are in sweats. They're relaxed, they're comfortable.
Hmm.
Not. I'm uncomfortable. Now don't get me wrong. My brother can dress up and I love to dress up. Don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
Everyone deserves to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So, one day I looked at one of my clients and I was like, I'm just curious. Would you care if I didn't dress in a suit? They're like, no, we don't care. Why don't you be comfortable? So that's just one of the things that I evolved with. I decided to dress to my clients. They want to be comfortable. If they're not showing up in suits, then I don't want to show up in a suit. And I learned that when I last worked at my previous job too. You want to meet the customer where they're at, right? You don't
Right.
want to come into their presence and make it seem like I'm better than you, and here's why you should work with me. That's the wrong mentality. You want to come with the mentality of we're an equal. I'm not your boss, you're not my boss. We're teammates. We're on a journey to meet a goal, and the
Hmm.
only way to get to that goal is to do it together. So
Okay. That's a great
thank
attitude. Great attitude. So what areas do you service in Ohio?
Oh, Lord. So I probably have the largest footprint in my office. So my base is Medina and all the surrounding cities in Medina and around Medina, of course, all the way up to Cleveland and all the cities that surround Cleveland. So that's driving through, Brunswick, Strongsville, Parma, the whole nine, Cleveland and all surrounding heights and suburbs of Cleveland, and then driving all the way down to Youngstown and all the surrounding cities of Youngstown to and from. I have sold properties all throughout all of those pockets. So it's not that I'm just saying, oh, well, I can drive there, so I must be able to service there. I've sold things there as well as listed things in those areas. So it's a lot of homework to do because to be able to list and buy and sell in those markets, you also have to understand the market. You can't just list something, well, $150,000. Does that sound good to you, Mr. Seller? Okay, great. Let's sell it for $150,000 when it should have been listed for 250. Or you
Hmm.
250 and it should have been listed for 150 because you're looking at the market at home in your hometown versus the
Right.
market someplace else. And it's very rare that two markets are the exact same because you have different school districts, different crime rates, different neighborhoods, and all of those go into factoring a price point. But again, making sure that you are being ethical, right? You can't do
Mhm.
any redlining, can't do any steering, and just more importantly, you have to stay transparent.
Okay. But that's I like the area. That's all places that I do business and have family in Cleveland and in Youngstown. So what type of clients do you specialize in working
Mom and pops and investors. Those are my babies, right? Love my mom and pops. It's great to get on a more personal level.
with?
You tend to lose that with the investors, right? Because with investors, there's no emotion in the property. They're buying the properties to increase their wealth, right? Put a tenant in, whether it's a Section 8 or a cash paying tenant, and in essence, to grow their empire. So there's no real emotion there. Whereas with my mom and pops, they're looking at this home to either live in, to age out in, as their very first home, as the home for their daughter, their son, their niece, their nephew, whatever family member that it may be.
Mm,
So the feeling of being able to help someone complete that goal, the feeling of giving someone the keys to their very first home or their dream home, that feeling is undeniably unreplaceable. It's
mm,
it's an awesome feeling to be able to be a part of that transaction because not everybody gets to look at someone and say, "Yeah, I helped that person find their dream home. I helped that person get their very first home." And as we drive through town, we have four children. As we drive through town, it's cool to be able to go through different neighborhoods and stuff and say, Daddy sold that house. You
mhm.
know, that's where Mr. and Mrs. such and such moved. And, my daughter, my oldest daughter, you didn't meet her. So Isabella, she's sold a few homes herself. I had a couple of clients that asked her, well, what do you think? And Isabella would say, well, it's got potential. This is what I this is what I do. And they would look at Bella and they, you think I should buy it? And Isabella would say, yeah, I think this would work for you. And they buy it. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
I see you got the little cheat code there. Bring the daughters on
Right,
the
right.
things.
So
uh,
it's nice that my kids enjoy it.
mm,
It goes a long way.
yeah, so that's funny. So what do you look for? Like if I'm talking to somebody, how do I know I'm talking to your ideal client?
Um, I guess you wouldn't. And I know that that might sound weird, and it's because you could be my ideal client, but we don't mesh. We don't fit well together,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
Maybe your attitude and my attitude don't mesh, don't bind. I'm a very open person, I'm a very transparent person, and it's important that we get along. Before the new laws changed, which stated that you now have to sign a buyer's exclusivity form before I can even open a door and show you a property. It was very easy to, in essence, fire a client, right? Um, we could go to a home and, Scott, I could say, it was nice meeting you. I don't think that this is a good fit. Let me introduce you to XYZ. They're going to be able to better assist you. Just because it was awkward, right? It wasn't a
right.
good. Well, now we have to have a buyer's exclusivity form by law. It's a federal law, which simply states that you are agreeing upfront before you even go into this property
Mm,
that you're going to pay your agent, the buyer's agent, X amount of dollars in commission on whatever home you buy. It doesn't have to be this home, it's
mm,
whatever home you buy. And you're going to be locked into this agreement for maybe a day, 30 days, a month, a year. It just depends on what that agent's agreement is. And it has to be standard, right?
mhm,
You can't say that, and again, this is transparent and being above board. You can't say, well, I'm going to sign all my African American clients for 30 days, but then I'm going to sign all my Caucasian clients for a year. You
Mhm.
can't do one, that's an ethics violation.
Right.
Right. Two,
Yeah,
you have
very
to
sad.
be consistent, right. You have to be consistent across the board. You can set yourself up for a lawsuit, right?
Hmm.
Um, so can you still get signatures and dismiss and get rid of that client? You can, but now there's paperwork, there's a paper trail. It's a lot more involved than just saying, hey, this didn't work, let me introduce you to this person, and then you're done with that individual. There's signatures, you have to explain what you're doing, the dismissing and the whole nine. Again, it's all for transparency. But the biggest reason for the buyer's exclusivity form is commission. At the end of the day, it is commission. What was happening is buyers and sellers were buying and selling property,
Right.
and they thought that, hey, Scott, you told me that I only had to pay you $3,000. Cool. All right. Seller's going to pay you $3,000. And when we get down to the table and they get their settlement paperwork, it shows that you're making 6,500. Well, I thought that we were only paying you 3,000. Well, no, remember we had this conversation that you agreed to pay 6,500. Well, where did we have that conversation? It was on the phone. Okay, where's the paper trail? There was no transparency.
Okay.
Random hidden fees were being snuck into there. And
Hmm.
by this point, well, what do you do? Do you kill your entire deal at closing day and start over? Or do you bite the bullet and pay this person this money that you don't feel that they deserved?
Hmm.
So as a result, now it is crystal clear on who's getting paid what, where, when, and how, and by whom.
Hmm.
Um, so now it is the law. If you open a door without having one of those, um, you will get a fine if the MLS finds out. And those fines can range anywhere from a couple $100 to creeping on up to in the thousands to suspension of your license to, hey, you want to be a Billy Bad behind and continue to violate, we're
Hmm.
just gonna remove your license.
Wow. Now that's news to me. I didn't realize that. I mean, I used to be an agent long ago and it wasn't mandatory, but
Correct.
I
And
can I can
that's
see the benefit of some of
yeah.
that, you know.
Well, the benefit is now you're going to get paid. It's just a matter
Hmm.
of who's going to pay you, right? Because everything's negotiations, and you can still ask the seller to pay the commission that the buyer agreed to pay. So don't get me wrong, right? And
Hmm.
that's what I always do. I charge a flat 3% to every single buyer. Okay.
Okay.
Um, every single investor, they are required to pay me a buyer's fee of a
Hmm.
minimum of $1,500. The reason why investors are in that category and the standard buyers are not is because my investors tend to buy homes that are 10 grand, $15,000, $25,000. So again, it's no offense to anybody, but I would be making two, three, $400, right? And if I'm
Hmm.
driving an hour and a half one way to some of these properties, no offense to anybody, that's not worth $300, right?
Not even 300, but
Right,
you
I'm
have to split with your broker.
right. So I'm going to spend that in gas. But that is all information that's disclosed up front. That's part of their buyer's agreement. It's explained to them. So when we get to the closing table, there is no phone call in the ninth hour. Bryan, you didn't explain. I don't understand this extra $1,500.
Hmm.
So we have a paper trail and we explain everything, but it just makes it easier. And there's just no surprises, at least not with me. I'm sure there's still surprises that are out there to some sellers and to some buyers because what do people famously not do?
Hmm. There's a few things. What's your answer?
When it comes to documents, let me narrow that
Oh,
down.
read them.
They don't read them. But you could put a million pages in front of somebody. What are they going to do? They're going to flip to the signature spot and sign.
Hmm. Especially the closing docs, they can get to be a little bit long. So I yeah, yeah.
And
Hmm.
even more so when they're e-docs. They just scroll, click, sign. And now, right, it's their e-doc. So when you hit I'm ready to sign, it just automatically moves you to the next
Yeah, it
signature.
shoots you to the signature. So yes, I get it. I get it.
So if I
Uh,
could give anybody advice out there amongst all of this stuff that you're hearing, read your documents. If you don't read, it's on you. You cannot go back and say, I didn't know, because all anybody and any attorney and any judge in the world is going to say is you did know. You had the documents and you signed them. Well, I missed that clause. That's not on anybody else but you. Adulting is hard. Don't get me wrong. Adulting is rough.
It is. It is.
But as part of adulting, reading is that requirement.
uh, it is true. It is true. That's definitely a problem that we've experienced over the years is a lack of reading the stuff that, is put in front of you. So when it comes to first-time buyers or investors, making them feel comfortable with the process, like how do you help them?
I just explained the process basically from A to Z, what it looks like, what it's going to be entailing for property searching, um, what I kind of look for in just the photos alone and the disclosures before we waste the time of going out to a property. If they need me to do virtual walkthroughs or just record it and send it to them, I can do that. I just make sure that they are comfortable with the beginning process because the
Mm,
end process, for the most part, it's the same worldwide, right? At the end of the day, cost this much, you're going to put down this much, or if you're paying in cash, you're going to put it all down. Here's your closing documents. Here's what it costs. It's rinse and repeat. But what is
right.
not rinse and repeat is the beginning process. And you can meet 25 different agents, and their beginning process will be 25 different ways because there are no two of the same people, right? So
Yeah.
it is important up front that my clients, mom and pops, and investors alike, are comfortable with me. And if they're not, that's okay. There are other agents that are out there.
Yeah. Indeed. Other personalities. Um, so when it comes to the markets and marketing, what's your approach to marketing properties and getting them in front of the right buyers?
Sure. So for mom and pops, Howard Hanna has an exclusive tool that's called showcasing.
Mhm.
And what showcasing does is we hire a photographer through Zillow. They go out, they're assigned to do floor plans, virtual walkthroughs, social media reels, twilight photos. So basically, you get to see the house in the daytime and the nighttime.
Hmm.
And then you do virtual walkthroughs. So, in essence, you could see the entire house top to bottom, every nook and cranny, every crack in the wall, as if you were physically there without ever leaving your chair.
That's pretty good.
And as an agent, we pay for that. That does not come out of the homeowner's pocket. Um, it's one of the reasons why we do our best to sell the properties because, obviously we want to get reimbursed for that. But what Showcase does, amongst all the things that I just mentioned to you, is we then also have your listing at the top of Zillow. So when people go to that zip
Zip
code,
code.
home is the very first house that shows every single time. And it has
Hmm.
been proven and studies proven that those homes sell 75% faster than any other house listed on Zillow, and that those homes have 35% more views than any other home on Zillow.
Hmm. That sounds like a very winning strategy. I love the twilight. That's a nice little nuance to it.
Mhm.
Can you share a success story of where you helped a client achieve a great outcome?
Sure. I had a client that we had out in oh, what was that city called? I don't even remember the city. Don't get me to lying. But we had the house on the market. It was kind of a fix and flip, but there were a lot of delays. They ran into more issues than they thought that they were going to run into, and we missed the summertime
Mhm.
cutoff. So basically, it wound up getting listed in the winter. So the house sat about 8 months stagnant, right? We had
Hmm.
showings, but it wasn't really moving. It wasn't giant. Sebring is where it was at. But house wasn't moving. We were getting feedback, but we were doing open houses. It just wasn't moving. So, Howard Hanna came out with this showcase deal, and I talked to the owner, and we decided to go ahead and do the showcase. And I kid you not, in 72 hours, we had that house under contract.
Hmm. Okay. I
So
like that.
Not that it's just a hype game, it's facts. It works.
And people like having all the information that they can see in front of them, I'm sure.
And the person that bought it didn't live in Ohio. They're
Mhm.
from out of state. And they bought it because they felt that they already knew the house. Now, prior to closing, did they physically fly here and look at the house? They did. But they were shocked because the photos and the walkthrough matched to the T what the
Hmm.
house looked like in person. There's nothing worse than showing up to a home that you think looks like this, right? For anyone
Mhm.
that can't see me, I'm holding up hand A. You get there and it's hand B, right? It looks completely different. The
Right,
photos that they had were 5 years old or 10-year-old photos. You got catfished,
right.
and I've been a victim of that. I've gone to a home that to an investor, man, this is it. This is a great price. I don't know why it's so low. It's been sitting here for half a year, but yeah, B, let's go ahead and buy it. Okay, well, let's put a contract in on it. Let's go do our inspections and our walkthroughs. And you get there, and there's bullet holes in the windows. There's feces all throughout the house. And sorry for the graphic details, but that's the truth.
That
But
is the
that
truth.
information isn't listed in the MLS. Those photos weren't taken and captured and put in the MLS. They put in brand new cabinets, new flooring, painted walls. Yeah, that's probably what it looked like when your client bought it. That is not what it looks like now. So
Mhm.
that's a classic case of a catfish and a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, because there's people who will buy that house, feces and
Absolutely.
all. You just have
Correct.
to be honest.
Absolutely. You just have to be honest. People know what they're walking into, so
Mhm.
it's going to be priced accordingly. But don't try to sell it at premium price and I'm walking into a rehab project.
Right, right. Speaking of rehabs, if you're working with an investor, what advice would you give someone who's just getting started in investing in real estate?
So if you're just getting started, we start out with teaching them and helping them understand what a buy box is. Have you heard of that term?
Say it again.
Buy box.
No. What is it?
So a buy box is what a investor feels is going to be their niche, how they want to invest on buying and exiting strategies,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
So, for example, you have your buy box investors that are going to be fix and flips. They're going to try to get a property as cheap as they possibly can. They only want to invest X amount of dollars and then they want to get rid of it. Period. So that's
Mhm.
their buy box. Fix and flips. Then you have the buy box investors that, hey, I want to purchase properties that will qualify for Section 8. That's all I want to rent is Section 8. I'm going to hold these for 6 months to a year, but I only want Section 8 tenants. So their buy box is homes that will qualify for Section 8 or maybe just need a little bit of TLC, but not major rehab. They're going to buy them, fix them, rent them out to Section 8 and hold them for X amount of time. And then they're ready for their extra strategy of selling it to an investor who only wants Section 8. So, my job is to teach them the different types of buy boxes, the different types of efforts that can go into it. Are they looking for value add properties, which are properties that can add value to? If you buy it for 50 grand, it might be worth 75 when we're done, 100, 150, just depends on the neighborhood and the location, right? The
Hmm.
real estate, location, location, location. Those are the only things that matter because those are the things you can't change. You
Exactly.
can demolish a house and rebuild it. You can add on to a home. You can completely remodel it top to bottom. There's a lot
Hmm.
of stuff you can change about a house. But the one thing that you can't change is the location. And don't get me wrong, if you want to get technical, you can now lift a house and move it. But let's be honest, who's doing that? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's the
Big
land
dollar,
that's the
big
important part.
dollar people are doing that, but the
Hmm.
average person is not lifting their home to say, hey, I want to move it to this lot in front of the lake because I'm going to add 80 grand to my property value. Okay, well, it cost you 700 grand to move your house. Was it worth
Right.
it?
Best to build another. Yeah.
Right.
So, what are some common mistakes that you're seeing investors make, and how can they avoid them?
Um, the biggest mistake I see is investors, they don't want to listen to their village, right? Doesn't
Hmm.
mean that you have to listen to me. I'm not the say all know all. But if you have a team and you have a backing and everyone is in it to help you, it's in your best interest to hear people out. Now, don't get me wrong. You have folks that don't want to pay a penny, but
Yeah.
want you to want to weigh in that full pound, right? If you're
Hmm.
not going to help me get to my end goal financially, then you really don't have say in this,
Mm.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Same concept. If you're buying your first house, you saved your money, you raised your capital, you're paying the down payment, and you are making that mortgage every single month. Whose final opinion matters? Grandma's, mom's, dad's, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters, or yours?
Yours. Your
Because at the
opinion.
end of the day, you're the only one that has to come home to this house every single day. It doesn't mean you can't ask for advice or ask for
Hmm.
insight. But if you love a house and your dad hates that house because he doesn't like the size of the closet or he doesn't like this room, no offense, love you, Dad, but this isn't your house.
You don't have to go in that room. You don't have to look in that closet.
Bingo. You got it. So
Hmm.
it really just comes down to investors. We just ask that you hear us out, that you listen to your village because we want the best for you. But that's where it goes back to the beginning of this podcast about good agents and bad agents. If
Yeah.
you have a good agent, that agent is going to be able to tell you no. If you have a bad agent, that agent will always tell you yes in the things that you want to hear. If you're always getting the advice of yes and always getting what you want to hear, that's not a good agent. That's not a good agent. That's an agent that wants the commission check and is ready to move on.
Anything. They'll say yes to anything.
Correct.
Um,
I tell my investors up front, I am a confrontational agent. I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm going to point out the defects. I'm going to point out the stuff that's going to cost you money because at the end of the day, it's not my money, it's your money.
mhm.
And you're an investor. What does that usually mean to me? That usually means to me that you're going to buy more than one property. So, do I want this quick $1,500 commission check, $3,000 commission check, $10,000 commission check, whatever it may be? Do I want one of those? Or do I want 50 of them?
Right.
Not me
Fifth.
being, that's me being factual,
Right.
right? I'm dedicated to you, so I'm asking for that same in return. And as a result, I'm going to be your coach. I'm going to be the person that's helping you guide in and out of pitfalls from making the mistake of, hey, Brian, we don't want to invest more than 10,000. Okay, well, this is a great home. And you invested 50 because Brian said it would only cost 10 and we didn't
Mhm.
facts versus, hey, Brian, I don't want to spend more than 10. Cool. This is a great house. Here's my contractor. Here's his quote. He can do it for 5,500. Great. Let's buy this house. Let's fix it and flip it. It's all because you wanted to listen and take the advice. Because I was a good agent that was able to tell you, here's why you don't want this house versus just buy it and let me get that check.
Right. And that's what it's about sometimes, is just giving someone good advice and hoping that they listen, you
Right.
know, and trying to be honest with them. Uh,
Yep.
Listen, if somebody wants to work with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
So easiest way to get in touch is to just call me directly. My direct phone number is 330-506-5652. If I do not answer, I'm either with a client or I am at a family event, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. As I tell anybody, if you want an immediate response, texting is usually the fastest way because even if I'm in a meeting, most time I can still text you. Don't get me wrong, there are times where I'm just completely tied up and I cannot get to my phone. That's life,
Yeah.
but I will always get back to my clients.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we have one more segment that I want to talk to you about. So stay tuned for after these commercial breaks. All right, we're back to the Momentum Builders podcast. Here again with Bryan Spurlock of Howard Hanna in Medina. Today we're talking a little bit about, now we're talking a little bit about the key part of our business, real estate project management. Bryan, you and our team are working together to provide investors with a full service experience covering both the real estate side and the rehab and construction side. Um, we always felt like our job when we were doing, we were doing project management in Michigan and now we're in Ohio. Our job was always to reduce the amount of stress in the rehab and construction process for investors by ensuring accountability, for everybody involved. That means, the investors, the contractors, the agents, making sure everybody's on the same page. And for your side of things, you're focusing on getting the property sold and filling it. If it's supposed to be rent ready, you're trying to find tenants. If it's going to be sold, you're trying to find buyers. So I wanted to talk a little bit, or you to talk a little bit about your role as an agent in that process, like for what we're working on right now.
So my role is to be the Amazon of real estate, right? So to kind of give the background behind that, if you look at the word, for some of you who don't know this, if you look at Amazon's logo, you'll see that there's kind of an arrow between the letter A and the letter Z.
Mhm.
Okay. The reason for that arrow and that logo is not to put a smile on, it's not just a point. Amazon sells everything from A to Z. That is the purpose of that arrow, right? And I want my clients to feel that I'm the Amazon when it comes to their experience, that Bryan can handle pretty much almost everything from A to Z when it comes to our experience, right? We need a investor savvy agent. Okay, well, Bryan's got that. We need our investment property. Okay, well, Bryan helped us buy it. We need these things repaired. Okay, well, Bryan has connections. He can team up with Team Woods. They can supply the connections, or he just has his own contractors that can go in and fix X, Y, and Z. So that way, now the property is fixed, repaired, Section 8 ready or tenant ready, and he's ready to put a tenant in there because now they want to rent it. Okay, well, we're moving on down the ladder, right? So
Mhm.
now it's rented. Well, we need help property managing it because we live in Utah. We're not going to come down to Youngstown or Cleveland or Akron or every single week to check on these properties. Oh, well,
Right.
Bryan can handle that. Okay, well, that's another check in the Bryan bucket. All right, well, now we're ready to sell this property, Bryan. We've had it for 6 months, a year. We're ready to do a 1031 exchange. Wait, you have connections for 1031 exchange? Okay, that's another check bucket for Bryan,
Mhm.
right? And now we need it sold. So what have I done? We started with needing an agent,
Mhm.
finished with selling it. And although that sounds very simple, there's a lot of things that went on in the middle to get it from A to Z. So that's where I get, my little logo that I want to be your Amazon agent.
Okay. Yeah, that's I like the analogy between Amazon and yourself. At least speaking from my side of things on the project management side, one of the things that we noticed when we were trying to get projects of our own done is there's a lot of inconsistency, especially when it comes to dealing with different contractors and stuff like that. And as we started working with other investors, they would have the same kind of problems that we were having. And so we started adding more, a little bit more accountability. That started with the estimates. Like I've received. Sometimes you get an estimate, it's like let's say you need a roof put on
Mhm.
and new windows, and some people will just go in there, uh, new roof and windows, $10,000. That's it. That's their estimate, and that's not something that you can really lean on. It's like, what are you going to do? How are you going to operate? Well, how long is it going to take? And you wouldn't get any of that. And so the contractor may be good, but they may not have that level on their business yet to be able to provide somebody with some type of information that they're going to need in order to make that decision. And that's kind of where we come in as far as helping make sure that the estimates are clear. Everything that's supposed to happen is written down so that there's, again, no surprises. and all the money is set up front. This is what's supposed to happen. This is how much it's going to cost. I mean, obviously, there's things that come up, but we're going to handle that with transparency. It's like if this thing that we didn't know about until we took this piece off the wall, well, this is another 15 grand, but we didn't know it till we took the piece off the wall.
Right.
And then we address it like that, you know. So it's just kind of keeping everybody on the same page.
Yeah,
Um,
transparency is
and
key.
that's where the bread and butter comes up from us.
Mhm.
Uh, Now, is for you, what's the biggest challenge real estate investors face when managing a rehab project in your experience?
The biggest challenge that investors face, not my investors, of course, but the biggest challenge investors face is paying a contractor to do a job and they do not show up. That is the biggest issue, right? Um, my grandparents have faced that. You know, they paid a guy $9,000 to put a new roof on their commercial building, and he went out there and he put a roof on the commercial building, or did he?
Mhm.
Right? So we have tenants calling, hey, I got water coming in my unit. Well, how can you have water coming in? We just put a brand new roof on your unit. Yeah, it's coming in. So the guy goes out. The guy visited a total of 9 different times, and each time that he came out, more and more damage was happening to the roof. So, finally that was it. A new guy was hired in. I managed the project from the very start to the very begin or very end, all the way to the point where I had to climb up on this commercial building to ensure. And the very first question I asked them on the very first day was, can you show me where he replaced the roof at? And he looked at me in my face and he said, you couldn't pay me $1 million to tell you where he replaced the roof because nobody has touched this roof.
Mm,
So
yeah,
$9,000 was paid to an individual who claimed to put on a roof when in fact he did absolutely, positively nothing. So
yeah,
it is important to have a team. It is important to have a reliable team. And most importantly, as an out-of-state investor, it's important to have someone who is going to manage the project, manage the construction, and that you're not just getting a handshake, a wink, and a nod saying that the project is done. I have all of my contractors send me before and after pictures so that
yeah,
way I can compare. And a lot of investors don't do that, right? And they even have property managers that don't do that. Property manager says, "Hey, Bob, we need $1,000 to put on 2 new doors." Okay, here's $1,000. Okay, the doors have been installed. And then when they go to sell it, guess what's not done?
the
The new
doors.
doors. They were never put on. They were never ordered, but the $1,000 was paid. And
Right.
it happens across the country. That's not an
Yeah,
Ohio thing. That's everywhere. If
yeah,
people steal $1, they will, unfortunately.
right. I and I'm not even trying to. I don't want to gang up on the contractors because there's a lot of really good contractors,
I agree.
and I think that there's a lot of really great contractors with bad systems,
I
you know,
agree.
that can be worked with to, you know, bring them up to that level, to a greater level where they're getting more business. And it's like that's the type of, you know, the contractors that we want to work with, the ones that do good work, but maybe you need a little help with administrative, maybe you need a little help putting estimates together, or putting a professional website on your business or something like that. You know, that's where it gets exciting for me in the process, you know.
You get to help them grow their business, grow their
Right.
network, grow their influence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've in the last few years, I mean, I've heard it a long time, but something that I've taken to really embrace is about being of service to others. And that helps me feel better about myself, feel better about moving forward in the world. So that's where I think a lot of our interests align, you know, when it comes to doing this project management. Um, how do you help your clients navigate the buying and selling? Oh, you actually already talked about that. Um, have you seen deals delayed or fall through due to poor project management?
Yep. Officially 18 hours ago. Not exaggerating. We put in an offer on March 1st. Took them a week and a half to accept. strictly just because they couldn't get a hold of the property managers to see if we would be able to even get in the property. And then it took them up until the 11th to finally allow us to get in the properties just because of all of the disconnection between the listing agent, the owner, and his property management team. And then when we finally got in the property, the deal completely fell apart because it didn't look like the photos. There were things that were damaged, things that needed to be repaired that to the owner had no knowledge that these things that were fixed. And it goes back to communication.
Hmm. Yeah,
Communication.
that's key.
Mhm. But the other thing that it comes down to is when you have tenants and there are issues with the properties, um, it's important, in my personal opinion, to tell your tenants that when things are broken, things are damaged, to contact you. So many tenants are afraid to reach out to the property managers and tell them that something is broken, something is damaged because they think that their rent's going to go up. It's not necessarily that the rent's going to go up. I appreciate a tenant that tells me about this stuff. Communication is key. Transparency is key. Don't you want to live in a nice place? I know it.
Hmm. I do too. Mm.
So,
Yeah,
but a lot of people have had bad experiences. I know tenants that I place in some of our units that they're like, "Oh my God, this place is so nice." I said, "Yeah, it's not a slumlord. We just ask that if something's broken, you tell us." And sometimes you have those tenants that do, and what happens in return? It never gets fixed.
yeah, yeah. I've experienced that as well
So,
because for various reasons the property just doesn't the property owner doesn't make it a priority.
correct.
You
Yeah.
know,
Teamwork is the dream work. So it takes everyone to work together in order to make it work, just in general.
exactly. Yeah. As far as I get the benefit for the owners, the investors, I just wanted to touch on some of the benefits that I see for contractors themselves, working with a team of project managers, folks that can help get deals and facilitate the process. There's steady workflow, connecting with invest because the project managers, we connect with investors and real estate agents for consistent projects. That way, there's always steady work going. Like I said, I spoke a little bit earlier on trying to help contractors write scopes of work and estimates that get them hired. Like I'm trying to work with you to make sure that whatever you're sending me is thorough enough and affordable enough for the deal that we're talking about that it makes sense to work with you on it. And then there's the when it comes to putting together websites and things like that, that's something that we do well on our own. And I like making websites for people that I like working with. And
Mhm.
so being able to put a portfolio of their work and their stuff on the internet so that they can find more folks and more steady work. That's if you're working and you're doing well and you're improving your business, then that means that I've got a great contractor that I can put into any deal that comes to us and feel confident of moving forward with it.
Right.
So that's the big thing when it comes to working with contractors. We just want folks that are serious and want to grow, looking for expanding their team, and especially a few that are willing to guide and mentor other contractors. That would be awesome too, as far
Mhm.
as like working with that for project management. Before we leave the subject, do you have anything else you want to add on about project management or the stuff that we're doing on that?
No, no, just
Okay.
if you want a reliable team, I think that we put together a pretty solid foundation, and that's what we are here for, is to help you grow your business
Mhm.
and bring in great contractors that we are here to work with you, not against you. And we not only want to help our investors grow, but we want to help our contractors grow, and we want to continue to grow our team to continuously feed everybody at the end of the day.
Right. Because that's what it is. We get there together.
Right.
At least that's the idea that I see. My final question to you before we close out. What was the first album And album, record, tape. I'm not sure exactly what was popular when you were at the age, but what was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
First album that I ever bought with my own money. Oh Lord. I don't know, because that would have been forever ago. Um, if I had to, I think it might have been I think it might have been like Motown.
Motown? Really?
Oh.
I had a
Yeah.
buddy of mine that was into Motown. Like what Motown? A group or
No, just like a Motown collection.
really?
Just
You were into
different.
Motown as a kid?
What's that?
Said you were into Motown as a kid?
But see, my parents are very old school. So like the first concert that I ever went to was James Brown at the Pit in Albuquerque, New
What?
Mexico.
Nice,
So
nice. I can't
my
say that.
mother's boyfriend at the time was his opening band.
Okay, okay.
They did the opening, and then James Brown and his crew came out. So that was my first concert that I ever went to. But that's the music I was raised up in.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. I grew up in Detroit, so I'm familiar with Motown. That's just always surprising to me. You never know what you're gonna get with that question, because you kind of see where somebody was back then. For me, it was "Raising Hell" by Run DMC,
Fair enough.
and I get the side eye from my aunt when I bought it, but it did happen. Like, what's this? Never mind. Uh, well, anyway, that's a wrap for this episode of the Momentum Builders podcast. Big thanks to our guest here, Bryan Spurlock, and to all of you tuning in. If you got value from today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And until next time, do whatever you need to do to keep your peace of mind and keep moving forward and stay building momentum, y'all. Peace.